Today's episode of Northern Lights is presented by North Star Law Group, your trusted partner in Minnesota's burgeoning legal cannabis industry. Whether you're just starting out or looking to expand, attorney Jen Riza and her team will help you understand the latest developments, scope out risks, and find a compliant path forward in this rapidly changing field. Visit northstarlaw.com and let North Star Law Group guide you through the legal landscape with confidence. And we're back. Welcome to another episode of Northern Lights Podcast. I'm your host, Tanner, here joined today by Marcus and Steve. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Tanner. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming out today. We've got a ton of stuff to talk about. We've got a lot of news coming up. We've got some cool products to try in just a little bit. We've got an awesome interview coming a little bit later with Andy over at Modist Brewing, talking about an upcoming product that we're releasing with them. I encourage people to listen all the way to the end of that. And then finally, at the end of today, we'll be talking about a beverage release party we got coming up in just a couple weeks. It's going to be a really fun time.
February 17th.
Yeah, I suppose we can give the date at the start. We don't need to make you wait an hour and a half for the date. But yeah, February 17th, beverage release party at Modist. Should be a fun time. So listen to the end if you want the rest of the details. But guys, we had an amazing class just a couple of weeks ago. It was so fun to have the crew over at Loggyblom come out, show us their cool new grow kits, to share some of their incredible information. We all were there. It was a good time, guys.
Another packed house, good energy, great information, a lot to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
Seed cups.
Yeah.
Innovated, premiered at the event.
Yeah. In fact, Genetics released that night that if you go to our YouTube page right now, which probably some of you are on right now, you can go and watch that live stream because we've got that plant still growing inside of our tent. We started our seed that night and it's doing great. It's actually really doing great. So I'm really excited to see where that goes.
So where can people find that on the website?
Yeah, so if you go right to our website, you can check that live stream on there. There should be a button that says Let's Grow Together. Otherwise, if you go to mncannabiscollege.org/grow together, it'll bring you directly to that.
But YouTube is live right now. You can go on over to YouTube. Minnesota Cannabis College is live in 2024.
Yeah, we encourage people to check out those plants growing. But that's not it. You can actually come in person and learn more about growing plants. We've got an awesome class coming up. You'll be hearing a little bit more about it in that interview with Andy. You already heard a little bit about it with that interview with Stefan last week. But I just want to plug again, mncannabiscollege.org/soil. Learn all about the science behind soil. This is another one of those classes that I'm really excited to be a student at, and I'm really, really looking forward to bringing people out for it.
We also have a boot camp on February 29th for those that are more new to growing.
Yeah.
And so we have some great guests on the podcast coming up to talk about how you can learn to grow.
Yeah, really some
Have you thought about learning how to grow? I mean, we have resources for you.
Mm-hmm. Monthly, and Tanner, you hosted an online growing class and an in-person grow at home meetup.
Yeah, absolutely. We should give a shout out to Cannajoy MN, the partners in that Let's Grow Together series. We had our first meetup with growers last night. If you're listening to this on Monday, it was last week, but truly an incredible time having people come out, share some of their plants that they're growing in photo form, and perhaps sharing a bit of the flower that they grew in flower form. It was a good time, and cool to see so many people come together around growing cannabis.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a growing community of home growers.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing to witness.
So go get those tickets. And we should say, if you're outside of the metro area, you don't want to make the drive in, we get it. It's still a little chilly out. The roads are maybe a bit slippery. Not these days, but whatever be it. mncannabiscollege.org/soil. You can get those tickets, but also we've got a live stream available. You can watch that at home, follow along, get the same type of information. Just it's harder to walk away with one of those beverages if you're streaming it. So definitely come on out.
You betcha.
Yeah. Well, guys, should we get to the news?
Let's go.
All right. The news. So we had a lot of stuff happen in the past couple of weeks. The Office of Cannabis Management really likes that sort of hurry up and wait. And this was one of those hurry up weeks of doing a lot of stuff. So let's talk through some of the things that they had that came out this week. First off, not necessarily from the office themselves, but about the office. Governor Walz, the Walz administration, has put out that they are now officially reopening the application for directors for the Office of Cannabis Management. So if you are interested in that job, you want to be the director of our new OCM, you can go apply for that from between now and February 26th.
February 26th. The job position is open about a month.
Yep. And this time, instead of them just sort of putting that position out and saying, hey, please apply, they've actually contracted with people that are professional recruiters to go and try to find people to get them to apply. So the saga of our director continues.
I mean, I get hiring professional headhunters, but I would hope these people also have a great understanding of cannabis, the cannabis industry.
Certainly hope so, that's for sure. Well, so this all came out on Thursday, and the reason that this was all announced on Thursday is because some other big news came out on Thursday, actually around that same Office of Cannabis Management position. I'm sure you all remember the appointment of Director Aaron a couple of months back, and never ended up happening, but the legislative auditor did look into it to see, hey, did something wrong happen during the process? Was there something that was missed? And they ultimately concluded that, well, they didn't really engage in that standard background checking as they should. There wasn't necessarily anything that went wrong with the process other than the outcome. What are your thoughts on that?
What was your reaction when you first heard about Judy Randall being assigned?
Yeah,
or taking on the actually audit?
Absolutely. So Judy Randall, that's the person who's doing that auditing for the legislature. When I heard that she got appointed, I think we all were like, yeah, that makes sense. We're sort of curious how this person got appointed, how they got all the way through to that end before anyone asked the questions like, hey, do you owe money to the government? Or, hey, how long have you been in business? Are you selling compliant products? You know, questions that I think should have come up. And
hey, do you have judgments against you for unpaid wages to former employees?
Yeah, things like that. So I was happy to hear that appointment was made, that they were looking into it. I do have to say, I am sort of disappointed that the auditor looked into it and said, hey, you know, they should have done more, but this is the governor's job, so, you know, we're going to stop investigating it at this point. Because I feel like there really should be more investigation into this, but that's the role of the governor, not necessarily the legislature.
Don't you think the conclusion, if these people are really independent auditors, would be that y'all just made a bad decision? Like, beyond not vetting her well, you just made a bad decision.
And I think that's sort of how it ended up shaking out, is they looked at it and said there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with the process other than just that outcome. They wish it was a different person, but understand that sometimes the process works out in the way it did. In fact, they emphasize that there are thousands of appointments made every year, and really not many of them come under this level of scrutiny, and even the ones that do, rarely do they end like this. It just happened to be the first position appointed to try to start up our cannabis industry.
I mean, they had like 150 applicants. You can't tell me that there was nobody.
I can't, but Judy Randall, the auditor, she can, and she did. And
she's at home saying, fuck you, Mom.
Yeah. Judy, if you're listening, come on the podcast. We have questions. We'd love to.
We've got an open stool.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but no, really, it's just they hope that the process goes better next time. And this is the governor used the date of that audit report coming out to say, hey, speaking of that process, it's officially open now. Please go and apply. So if you're one of those people, you're interested in applying, cannabis.mn.gov, click on the About Us page. It will bring you right to that position. Heck, we'll put it in the show notes. If you're a listener listening to this and thinking, I could be the director, well, I guess apply.
Yeah.
Did you see the job description, though?
They raised the...
Who do you think they're going to hire? It's not going to be somebody that understands the cannabis industry. It's going to be some
I don't know.
technical bureaucrat.
Yes.
I mean, we need some of those skills for that position, but we've seen in all other states, if you don't have people leading the regulatory agency who really understand the cannabis industry and want to see it thrive, they're going to just be a big problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that's totally fair. I'm optimistic.
Me too.
Maybe. I want to be optimistic.
They've raised the salary. They've upped this. Okay. They've upped the salary range, so that will bring a larger number of applicants.
I mean, people were willing to subject themselves to that amount of scrutiny, though.
Oh,
it's like $63 to $91
I think
an hour.
that's.
I could use that, but I don't.
That's a healthy salary.
I don't want that smoke.
Oh. Well, speaking of smoke, Guys, that's not the only thing that the office did over the past couple of weeks. If you listened back to our last episode 2 weeks ago, we talked about some THC-A meeting that was happening at the time. That episode was recorded right before the meeting happened. We're now a couple weeks out, and we just wanted to update everyone on sort of what came out of that.
Yeah, like we're about 10 days off from this, so
Yeah. So THC-A update. We were worried that perhaps this would get really policey. The sheriff's involved, sort of raiding stores, looking like that.
Kicking in the doors.
Yeah, it appears, at least for now, that the Office of Cannabis Management, who has that regulatory authority, is going to contract out through the Office of Medical Cannabis or the Department of Agriculture to try to get some inspection going, even if it's not Office of Cannabis Management employees, it's other governmental employees utilizing their authority to get it done. So at least not the huge police involvement that we were concerned about, but I'll be interested to see sort of how that enforcement process goes.
Right. Seeing is believing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, so the big bulk that we had come out this past week from the Office of Cannabis Management is not necessarily the director position, which is neat, and not necessarily the THC-A stuff, but actually some updates on the rulemaking process. So the Office of Cannabis Management is tasked with writing 2 different reports that come out to the legislature. Those did come out just this past week. Marcus, you actually streamed into their release meeting where they talked through the results and what they think that they really say about the future cannabis industry. What I thought that we could do today is talk through some of that big high-level numbers. Obviously, we'll be digging into these studies for another couple of weeks, but I thought we could at least share some of the main things that people can expect in those studies, and also what they might hint at for the future of our industry.
Yeah, this is good to share because most people are not going to see it, let alone read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first study that I thought was super interesting is an annual report to the legislature. So this is just a required report that they have to do every single year. Yep, Marcus is holding it up right there. You can go to their website and download it right now. You can print it off like we did and have a cool paper copy. And you can read through some of the notes that the legislature sent over, the Office of Cannabis Management sent over to the legislature. The first one is they found that the majority of people are illegally obtaining their cannabis. Shocker, guys. Did you know that 67% of people are obtaining their cannabis through friends and family and buying it from them?
67%?
That's what they said.
I mean, it's 100% for the flower.
I want to stop you. I want to stop you before we go too deep on these studies, in the sense that 40% of the applicants or the study participants are a part of the medical cannabis program.
Mm-hmm.
I find that to be very fascinating. So 40% of these people are enrolled in but that makes sense. It makes total sense that that's where your user base starts for the state to conduct a study.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got the majority of cannabis being purchased in Minnesota today illicitly. Shocker.
I mean, 100% of people I know who smoke flowers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a lot of illicit cannabis, not at all a surprise. Some of the other things that we saw is sort of where people were getting their cannabis and how much they were buying. It was pretty interesting to me to see that Olmsted County had some of the highest purchased cannabis per transaction of any county in Minnesota. People there on average buy 5.7 grams of cannabis per transaction, compared to here in the Twin Cities where it's only like 4.5 grams.
The more you hate on it, the more they will buy it.
The more they will buy it.
I've never been offered, hey, do you want to buy 5.7 grams? No, I need 5.3.
Wait, you're telling me 5.2 grams, the standard amount purchased in St. Louis County, isn't the standard way to purchase? I'm shocked, but the study...
No, I just went 4.4 today.
4.4, there we go. Well, then you fit
Don't
into...
short me, goddammit.
You fit into Sherburne County, which actually is 4.4.
Don't give me 4.1.
All right, well, so we joke, but there were actually a lot of interesting things that came out of this study. Not a surprising thing, again, is that a large number of consumers utilize alternative cannabinoids, is how they classified them. CBD, Delta-8, Delta-10, still out there, still being used, and the majority of people reported that they've also used those cannabinoids in the past month.
And there were participants from every county in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, we had spread from all over the state. So this isn't just people in Minneapolis that are using CBD, but it's people across the state of Minnesota finding ways to integrate cannabis into their life that's not just Delta-9 THC.
Did they get a report for like all 87 Minnesota counties?
So what they did
just
is
the bigger ones?
they reached out to all of the counties. They have individuals in all of them. The specific numbers on how much is purchased at a time per county, they only released a certain number of counties for that. So we don't have the data in like a spreadsheet form.
I don't
yet.
think they have enough data.
Yeah.
Hey, nice try though. Thanks for it. We
Well,
can start somewhere.
And let's talk about sort of the big things that we did have come out of this report, because there actually were some pretty big news in terms of what the office thinks should change.
Some good takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely. So takeaway number one, the office thinks that they need to improve the structure of the application and licensing process. Yeah, we agree.
This is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. They really indicated that one of the biggest hurdles is that right now, if you would like to open a cannabis business, you have to in some way have secured that property. You have to have some sort of idea of this is where my business is going to be. They're really looking on trying to eliminate the need for that. So that way you can say, I'd like to get my license, and then I'm going to figure out how to run my business. Yeah. First, tell me I can do it before I invest time and energy into starting it up.
They're trying to avoid phantom licenses from happening.
Oh, yeah.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Tell people what phantom license means.
So in the sense that licenses are granted, but they remain inactive due to the inability to secure local approval or registration.
So there may be 10 licensed businesses, but only actually 2 stores that have opened.
For the cities that limit the number?
No, not even that. Just like, it's sure you've gone through the process of getting your cannabis business license, but maybe, you weren't able to go through all the steps of getting that local government approval. As of right now, local governments have to go through this approval process, but let's say they drag that out. You've got your license, you've got your business, you're ready to go. We're just sort of waiting on that local government to say, yeah, Marcus, you followed all the steps. I
thought that could probably influence the OCM from denying a license, but it can't 100% stop somebody.
It can't stop you, but it can delay how long you're going.
It'll give you some trouble.
Let's say the city comes out and they say, yeah, we're cool with this, but we do need to come and do an inspection first to make sure that everything's up to code. And they come out and say hey, everything was up to code, but unfortunately your doorway, it's not wide enough to be approved under disability rights in Minnesota. You do need to change that. We'll come back out in a month and a half and do an inspection. And that happens 2, 3, 4 times. The city isn't stopping you.
Yeah,
but
they can deter you. They can sabotage you.
Yeah.
But within these recommendations, they're also taking away some of the things that could get held up in county.
Yeah.
So they are removing barriers to license.
Yeah.
The
goal is really just to sort of streamline. You've applied, you've gotten approved. Let's get your doors open and start this business operating.
Yeah. I mean, I really do believe the OCM will do their best, to try to make this industry work.
Well, and
it's going to be a lot of learning.
It's going to be a lot of learning. But I do have to say, seeing that recommendation was I was reading the pages through. I was like, yeah, I'm liking what I'm reading. And then I got to the next one, and I was actually really impressed that this was included in the first report of OCM. So not only do they think we should improve the licensing process, but they also think that on that social equity side, we really need more of an explicit carve out for social equity applicants. They looked at that 20% of points that's during the application process and basically said, yeah, it helps you when you get your license, but then once you have your license, you're sort of on your own. They really want to come up with a specific license type that's specifically designed for social equity applicants and find ways to not advantage, but provide support to those license holders even after the application process.
Yeah, I was on a call with the OCM, a little webinar. There's 20 people on there. And I was really encouraged. It even sounds like they are open to, if it's possible, letting the micro businesses be the first ones to get a stab at the industry. So I really do believe that there's a spirit. They're developing the organizational culture of the OCM as they stand it up now. And I do really think that they're going to be on the side of the small businesses.
Yeah, the more honorable side.
Yeah, for sure. That's where there's more integrity and culture.
Yeah, that's right. So they didn't stop there. I kept reading and I kept thinking, wow, yeah, the OCM, at least as of right now, sort of knows what they're doing. The next recommendation was they looked at the divide that we have between the medical and adult use industry as it's written today. And basically, if you're growing flower and it's adult use flower, and someone wants to buy that through the medical program, tough. It's not medical flower. And you might ask, what's the difference between medical flower and adult use flower? And the difference is what license it was grown under. And that's it. This would allow cannabis to move in between those, unifying that supply chain between adult use and medical cannabis. Not only will it make it, easier to operate a business, but also when we think about it, it's likely to provide people with better access to medical cannabis. As of right now, they're limited to just those 2 growers, and even under adult use would be limited to just a couple medical cultivators. This change could really say, you can now get medicine from any product.
So that makes it more viable for the cultivators, right?
Much more.
Yeah, that's great.
That's how you repair the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I worry about cultivators a lot, and we don't have all these other products without the flower.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if if the cultivators can't make a living, then we're going to be left with few options, and the less competition, the less quality we'll have. So I'm excited to see. Yeah, this is going to push those medical companies to produce better products.
Fingers crossed.
As far as flower,
It's going to incentivize a better medical program.
Mm-hmm. That's the latest.
Yeah.
And then Marcus, you talked a little bit earlier about being on a call and trying to hear about how can we get social equity licenses out there first? Well, this is what they were talking about. The last recommendation that they had was they want to look at a mechanism for issuing temporary licenses. They're saying, yeah, we've had this license process, but is there a way that we can take some of those social equity applicants and fast track them to opening their business? So that way we're having stores open, we're having these businesses have this, cash flow, and we're supporting social equity businesses exclusively through that.
Yeah. I brought this question up in that call because, there were certain things that came out in the bill that were statute, meaning the law, and then they created a lot of space for the OCM to do rulemaking, because legislators should not be trying to create the rules for the industry. They're not qualified. But one of the things within the law was saying that, social equity applicants are not allowed to harvest their business, which means sell your business in the future to anyone else but another social equity applicant, which to me is inequitable. It contradicts the whole purpose of equity when you don't allow a social equity applicant to grow a business and then sell a business to someone who actually has capital to make, to give you the right price. So that's worthwhile, so that you're rewarded for all your hard work. And they said they completely agree. So there's one of the jobs of the OCM is to propose legislative fixes to the bugs and, the bad ideas that got through in the law. So I do believe that the OCM will put forth, legislative solutions to some of the bad parts in the law.
Think about it. It's just, it's nice to see the OCM active in 2024.
Yeah. Very else.
It's they're getting scrutinized, and they even said on the call, some of y'all have been pushing this really hard, and we appreciate it. And I'm thinking, oh, thanks. Thanks. I guess we're becoming better friends by the day.
Marcus Harkis.
Well, we've got one more study that came out from the Office of Cannabis Management that I'm really excited to talk about. I think we should play a little bit of a game with this one, but first let's take a very short break. All right, and we're back. So guys, I said we're going to play a little bit of a game. Neither of you knew about this ahead of today, so I'm excited to live on the podcast announce this to you. So we got the study looking at Minnesota cannabis consumers. The office looked into sort of what different consumers of cannabis products look like in Minnesota, and we're going to read off some of their numbers on what they think Minnesota cannabis industry looks like. And I want you guys to argue either higher or lower. So we're going to read off a statistic. For example, 83% of qualified participants consumed cannabis at least once a month. So that means 83% of people who participate in this report consume cannabis at least on a monthly basis. And this only interviewed people that had consumed cannabis in the last year. So picture in your mind, people who consumed cannabis in the last year, 83% in the past month. Do you think that number is higher, meaning more people are consuming cannabis on a monthly basis? Or do you think lower, meaning less people?
Lower.
Because you think
I
lower.
think it's lower. Yeah.
I think they're trolling us because there were about 500 people studied in this. There were 500 participants. 83% is about 420 participants.
Incredible. Wow.
I mean, it's a
That's-
representative sample.
It is a representative sample, especially with that 420 in it. That's, I mean,
I'd say it's right about accurate.
okay, fair.
You
So-
think 83% of cannabis consumers only have cannabis once a month?
At least once a month.
At least.
So
once.
that
least
means
once,
that you have about 17% of people who consume cannabis in the past year, but not really monthly. Maybe like only like 2 or 3 times a year. Do you think 20% of cannabis consumers only consume 2 to 3 times a year?
Yes.
Possibly.
All right.
I mean, I went through my phone one day and there's like thousands of contacts, and I'm like, damn, I don't think most of these people smoke.
Wow. Well,
But that's people who don't smoke at all.
that's totally fair. And that's what keeps throwing out these numbers is this is of people that admitted to consuming cannabis in 2023.
There are some
most of
people
them.
that like rarely do it, but I
Yeah.
definitely think the people who do it more frequently.
They
All right.
only qualified 500 people.
Yeah.
It's a 500, and of those 40% are medical patients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a different type of statistic.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, let's move on here and let's talk about the next one. So, looking at these consumers, they said 25% reported cultivating cannabis at home. Do you guys think 25% of cannabis consumers are growing cannabis in their
hell
homes?
no.
You think way more than that?
No,
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I don't even think 5% of consumers grow their own shit.
All right. So let's flip this.
Even after the law.
What percent of cannabis consumers do you think grow cannabis at home?
I mean, it's definitely increased since the law has changed, but I swear, I don't think it's even 5%.
No, Marcus, I think my take on this is that there are Minnesotans all over growing their own cannabis. And I think that's amazing because they interviewed somebody from every county. And the further away you live, the more likely you'd figure out how to grow it on
You
your
might
own.
have to. You don't have a local plug that's reliable, good quality herb.
Yeah, you're not in Minneapolis.
Yeah, all right. I just don't believe it, man. What percentage of beer drinkers make their own beer?
You can't, I love that, but I hate that at the same time, right? When we had Kat on the podcast, she referred to the plant as a she and really was like more in touch with it. And beer drinkers, I don't know those people as well, right? But there's a very special relationship that people have when they start to grow cannabis at home. And we're starting to see that, and people are starting to be more open about that. And so I like the statistic. I also agree with you. I think it's high, but hey, it's the Minnesota Cannabis College. It might be high.
There we go. Exactly. I will say
I am high.
of our grow classes, I would say like 98 or 100% of those people are growing at home. So I feel like in my mind, this is skewed a little bit where I'd say like 40% of cannabis consumers are growing at home, but they're just the people I'm talking to.
Those
I
are the
mean,
people
that's
coming to the classes.
that's not a randomized sample. That's a hell of a bias.
It's so much
Like,
higher.
hey, let's find out the home growers and say what percentage of you grow cannabis.
Ugh. All right. Well, so moving on from this, the next numbers that they looked at is roughly how far people travel to obtain their cannabis. So they said that on average in Minnesota, people travel 18 minutes each way to purchase their cannabis. Do you think people on average drive longer distances to go get cannabis? Or do you think maybe they have someone close to them that they're just running down the street to get cannabis from?
I like this. I like 18. I think you could do it in 15.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're averaging all the distances and the time, I like 18 minutes.
There's some people that live like 10 minutes away from the highway though.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering how many people reported like, oh, I travel 6 hours because I drive to Michigan. And then this is skewing that sort of just a little bit
No.
higher.
You only go to Red Lake Nation.
Oh, yeah, only Red Lake Nation. Yeah.
I mean,
4
I
hours
think
each way.
It takes about 20 minutes to get anywhere in the Twin Cities. I mean, I live in the city. I can get to any of the suburbs, like first 3 rings within like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
We don't have to put anyone's name on blast, so I'm not asking you to do that. But when you guys generally purchase cannabis products, do you generally travel more or less than 18 minutes? Because I think personally, nearly 90% of the time I'm traveling less than that. Sometimes I travel more than that, but generally speaking, I'm going to either people or stores that are sort of within like 50. And I live in the Twin Cities, so I should say that. But
you know, from where I live, I can get to MJ Haberdashery in about 18 minutes.
Okay. All right.
And I can go to a real cannabis farm and buy cannabis.
There you go. That's pretty cool.
I can get it delivered for extra $10.
So Marcus's time would be zero.
I just gotta walk downstairs.
Well, that's interesting because some of the data in here was about they actually do get their cannabis delivered, and that showed up in the report.
Yeah, that was really interesting to see. That there's already sort of the statistics for, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think it was like closer to like 8% of people get their cannabis delivered to them.
It's a competitive advantage, you know, if you offer delivery. Like, why do I want to drive 18 minutes?
And they reported
my guy can bring it to me for $10 extra.
$40.
Yeah, so that's the next one we're going to do. So on average, when people purchase their cannabis, they're spending a median of $40 within the past month. So per month, $40 worth of cannabis. Marcus, do you think the average consumer is buying more or less than $40 worth of cannabis?
The average consumer is buying at least a half ounce to an ounce. The average consumer. There's a small percentage that are buying like eighths. There's more people buying quarters than eighths. Like $40.
A $40 ounce?
Those are those people that do it twice a year.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I mean, if
Y'all
they
should holler at me.
if they included medical patients, like think of how expensive that is in Minnesota today. Like $40 is going to get you a handshake or something. Like that's
My
not.
shadow will never darken the threshold of a medical dispensary.
At least not the current ones. Well, here's what I thought was interesting. They found Anoka County spent on average about $100 per month. Hennepin, Sherburne, Stearns, Blue Earth around $75. And then they found Dakota County, the lowest, at only $20 per month. Dakota, what are you doing?
I mean, that was one of the most prohibitionist counties. But most of those were hella prohibitionist counties.
Yeah, that's very true. Well,
I mean, Sherburne County, the drug war rages so fucking hard.
I think Mini Grown is in Dakota County. And so that gets you about one bag of gummies.
Yeah, that's true.
So everybody in Dakota County is buying one bag of Mini Grown gummies.
Wow. Well, shout out to Blue Earth. Blue Earth is a historical hemp cultivator here in Minnesota. They've been growing cannabis for over 100 years. Glad at least they're above the state average. Go Blue Earth. All right, let's look at our next statistic. So they looked at what was that bottom threshold. So the number of places that are going to be having retail shops open. What's like that minimum number to satisfy the legal requirement? They found 381 retail stores need to be open to meet that minimum qualification. So there can, of course, be more, but that's sort of that minimum legal amount. Do you guys think we're going to have more or less retail operations successful? So 381 stores. Think we're going to have more than that in Minnesota?
I think we're going to have most of them in the Twin Cities and like the population centers. But yeah, there's definitely going to be at least 381. I mean, but the thing is, there's going to be a cream that rises to the top. There's going to be a lot of these janky-ass smoke shop energy dispensaries with depressed staff that hate their jobs.
Real talk.
Yeah.
Real talk.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah.
And like, you go in there and you ask questions and they can't educate you about anything. They don't even like greet you well, and you don't ever want to come back. And sorry, I'm hating on them.
No, but I think it's so important to think about, like, I don't mean this negatively, but I think of those 300 some shops that get licenses, probably one of them is not going to be successful. At least.
Probably 8 of them.
At least
8 out of 10 are going to fail.
I mean, so I think looking
I
at
want some of them to fail.
No, I mean, look, like we're going to see a continuation of the stores that we are already seeing, and it'll evolve, and we'll see some new brands come into the market. But, you know, Minnesota's an interesting place. Like, our dispensary locations are, like, the ones that were first advertised to us were northern Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so all the best dispensaries near the UP and the border are going to suffer when Minnesota's cannabis industry opens. Yeah. So will they come into the space? Like, that's the people that could start opening, you know, multiple retail shops and try to, you know, grow brands. But when I see 381, I think about a ton of different business owners.
Yeah.
So, of course, tons of different business owners will fail. It's assured.
It happens in every industry, but it's going to be especially it's going to be a higher fatality rate for businesses in the cannabis industry.
And I'm going to be trying my damnedest to keep every one of those stores open. I'll be going to them every day, buying all the products.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
Tanner, you support
my homegrown.
You support every store you go to.
I try to. It's we have been fighting for years to exist in legal cannabis to be able to walk into a store and buy a cannabis product. I'll walk out with a gummy or seeds or a beverage, no problem. It's the future.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to trying some products, I did just want to give a quick shout out to some pretty cool stuff that's happening here in Minnesota. So the Mdewakanton Sioux Band of Dakota has started utilizing hemp in a way that's pretty unique. We've seen hempcrete being used throughout the country, throughout the world. And well, it's not really picked up due to its high cost here in the United States and here in Minnesota. The Mdewakanton Band of Dakota is looking at how can we utilize hemp to really deal with the homeless problem that they're experiencing. So more than half of their 1,100 enrolled members are in need of homes, and they've contracted with a national organization to come in and provide that assistance to local farmers to figure out how can we get these homes built. So we're going to see upwards of 300 acres of hemp being grown here in Minnesota, ground up, turned into hempcrete, being used to build homes.
I mean, to me, that's more exciting than anybody producing consumable products like that you ingest.
Yes.
That's powerful. That's
level
beautiful.
need.
Hempcrete is the future, I hope.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they're an organized tribe, and they have a solution to a problem, and it's a significant, it's a foundational problem that they have to solve for their family.
Yeah. So we're going to see a couple prototypes be put up this year. There's a 4-room prototype that's being framed and built like right now as we're talking. So we're excited to see that continue to get rolled out and see what this turns into in the next couple of months.
I would love to see it scale up so that it could, they could manufacture this type of construction material for the whole state. Maybe they can make a fortune.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, and it's ironic that they're trying to help those who do have shelter but live in moldy homes. Hemp is the solution to that. There is no mold when you use hemp as a building material.
Yeah, it's really an incredible piece. I mean, it's not an FDA-approved statement, so we can say whatever we want. The hemp being used for the home baking material, really one of the coolest out there. It's the flammability, like you were talking about, that moisture content. Like it's really
Fire
just
resistant.
Yeah, it's so important. So
the breathability to keep heat in when it needs to be in and keep cold air out when it needs to be out.
Energy efficiency.
Fluctuates. Yeah. It regulates its own fiber.
Yeah, so we just wanted to give a shout out. Anytime we see cannabis being used in cool and unique ways, we just want to take a minute to highlight it, especially when it's happening here in Minnesota. So
cannabis, right? Because now it's all cannabis, which is it's just so much easier to talk about when you have the edible side. It's funny you mentioned the FDA. Really, they're the problem here. So you know that's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway. But it's great to see hempcrete in Minnesota, like you said. But it's great to see it in a business or a setting where we know it's going to work. They will be able to scale this. They have been working on this for years.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful social enterprise.
Yeah,
I love it.
Pretty cool. All right, let's take a short break and then let's try some products.
All right,
you betcha.
Alrighty, howdy, and we are back. Guys, I'm super excited to try some of the products we've got today. We've got some cool beverages. We've got some cool gummies. I'm excited to be able to talk about some of the products that came out from some of our friends. So Steve is showing off this one right now. We've got our You Betcha kiwi.
Oh, sorry. We're
Kiwi
working
strawberry.
That's right. Here, let me hand you one.
Oh, thank you so much. Kiwi strawberry. Super excited about this one. I'm going to go ahead and pop this open here. This is their anytime beverage.
Which I like. They were daytime, nighttime as a brand to start, and they have innovated to a third beverage, and I'm really excited. It's 10 milligrams of hemp-derived THC, sparkling water, natural kiwi, and strawberry flavoring. I've been drinking it on the podcast. Couple sips. I like it. It's made with monk fruit and CBG. There we go.
That's why you brought it on. It was a CBG. I knew it. No, I love this one. I went up to Duluth for an event. Actually, Steve, I think you were there a couple weeks back. It was a fun time.
Are you quizzing me?
No, Not on this podcast. But what was so great about that event, I stopped for a pizza along the way and walked in, and they said, "Hey, you want a drink?" I'm like, "No, I'm not really a beer drinker." They're like, "Oh, well, we have these THC products. I don't know if you've heard of them." And it was the You Betcha Daytime that I walked away with, and it's a pretty good product. So enjoyed it, and man, this is another good one.
It is.
Really love the flavor on this.
It is. You betcha. You can get these products everywhere. I saw them last night in Uptown, Eat Street. You know, you can find them at coffee shops. It's a sweet flavor. I'm curious about it. I really enjoy kiwi and strawberry. Those are some of my favorite fruits in the summertime. And we need something kind of refreshing in the wintertime. So I'm enjoying it.
What are your thoughts, Marcus?
It's wet.
That's right. Wet like Kanye West.
I mean, honestly, I don't like it. I don't like the flavor. I eat kiwis all the time. I don't taste the kiwi.
That's fair.
It's like I do appreciate the monk fruit, and I love the CBG.
Right.
Here's a question for you. We tried some products a couple months back that I think you were not a huge fan of, but we described it as really being more for that like sophisticated consumer, the person who's maybe going to be
not sophisticated.
No, but how there are some products that are going to fit in great at like a concert setting, and others that, let's be honest, are going to fit in a little bit more at like the golf club. And this to me feels a little bit more like you'd go golfing, you'd maybe have the drink caddy or whatever the person come up and say, "Hey, you want a beverage?" And we've got this THC one. So
This should be carried at country clubs.
And soda in the refrigerator next to the tiny whiteys.
Incredible.
Tiny Whitey's is hilarious, Marcus.
I mean, I have never worn them in my adulthood, but those underwear that like are right under.
Oh yeah, no, we
Snipe type was. It wasn't a racial statement. I know
we're gonna throw a photo of those in so people can see. No, we're not gonna do that.
I'm just glad you're being honest about it, because it makes the podcast more fun. For me, as a longtime listener to Marcus Harkis, I said this past summer that Marcus Harkis is the best podcaster in Minnesota. And now that I'm on set, he continues to amaze me.
Incredible. Yeah, I got a text.
There's no way.
I got a text that was, "Hey, thanks for letting me come into the studio."
Like this
Marcus was the best.
Haynes.
Marcus has got it at Haynes.
The type of draws that like reduce your sperm count because they squeeze your testicles too much. It's like there's no breathability,
For those listening, we're cutting all of this.
I mean,
we're gonna say we tried the You Betcha products, and people are gonna stream it, and they're gonna be like, "No, you didn't." No, I'm just kidding. You all are listening right now, and this is kept in.
I think this works for somebody.
Marcus, you ready to try some more?
Fuck it, why not?
Alrighty. We are going to try some brand new gummies. And guys, actually what I'm really excited about for this is oftentimes in the podcast, we try gummies that you can go to the store and buy today because they've been out for a while. But these actually, as of our recording right now, you can't get in stores.
Oh, shit.
These are coming out the week that people are listening to this. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are thinking, "Hey, I can buy those at the store today." And that's because you can now, but we're excited to try some yet unreleased gummies. So these are from our friends over at Granny's, our Granny's crew. We should go ahead and hold up our gummies here, show them off. Now, guys, we've got 3 different incredible flavors that we're going to be trying out today that I'm so excited about. And if you want to try all 3 of them, just like we are on the podcast today, well, you can just go and buy the flavor pack. Comes with a little bit of all of them. You can give them a sample, but we're going to go ahead and open these up and give them a try. So, Marcus, which should we start with first?
I'm interested in the orange creamsicle.
You got it. Orange creamsicle we're starting with. So each piece is made with 5 milligrams. And what I think is super cool is it's not just 5 milligrams of like THC isolate. This is live resin that's included in this. So this is the full spectrum that we're getting. It. I'm stoked about this. Let's go ahead and bust open one of these gummies. Give it to you. There you go, my friend.
Thank you.
I'll grab one as well. Orange creamsicle.
That your fingers are clean.
Oh, yeah. Orange creamsicle. You got Granny there holding that orange creamsicle. You got a little bit of orange. You got the beautiful Groctopus art on the back. Big fan of it. Marcus, what are your thoughts on the gummies themselves?
I mean, Granny's knows how to put the flavors together. I wasn't expecting it to taste orange creamsicle-ish like it did.
But you literally can taste that cream of it.
And it's like the flavor is processing. Like, it doesn't hit you all at once.
Yeah, big fan. I like these. Orange creamsicle. Go check them out.
You want to keep eating them, but you know if you do, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. So should we keep eating some?
I mean, I already said, I figured I was just going to get high as hell today.
So what we do here on the Northern Lights podcast. So we've got 2 more flavors.
Happy Friday.
We've got Rainbow Sherbet. People might remember their Rainbow Rush beverage, a callback to that. And their Granny Smith. People might remember their delicious Granny Smith beverage, another callback to that. So encourage people to go check those out. Which one of these should we do next?
We tasted the Granny Smith beverage before, so I think I'd like to go with the Rainbow Sherbet.
You got it. So we're going to open these up.
Tanner, tell us about the Rainbow Sherbet, because I think a lot of people missed Rainbow Sherbet. Like, as it was an exclusive beverage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Granny's collabed with Modist. There is one for you. Way back in the day to create Rainbow Rush. It was like one of the first crossover beverages that I saw between cannabis brands and alcohol brands. Obviously, Modist has done so many since then, but this is the gummy form of the Rainbow Rush, the Rainbow Sherbet. Marcus, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like that it's sweet, but it's not overpoweringly sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it's good because some of these gummies, and I like sweet things, but if it's too sweet, it's like,
oh yeah. Yeah. No, what I love about this.
Some water. Chase it with some water.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this feels very much like it's sweet. It's flavorful, but it's not too much.
Yeah. It's not like the pretzels where you want to keep eating them.
Oh, yeah. Those pretzels, man. Those are great.
mean, yeah, but some people, if they took 20 milligrams, they should have gotten everything else done.
We've got one more to try here. Let's go ahead and bust open the Granny Smith. Starting the Granny Smith for last for the Granny's brand. Very on point.
I've been kind of spoiled by Honeycrisp apples. Like, I don't ever buy any other apple anymore.
I'm with you on that.
Well, this one is going to be
This is
sort of that
thankful,
like
too.
Granny Smith tartness that we're so used to. So let's give it a try. Tart. Man, that is a good apple flavor. I really like that. It tastes like apple. Like you get the apple flavoring on that. It's a Granny Smith apple.
It does, but it actually tastes better than the Granny Fruit apple. I mean, Granny Smith apple. I do love them, but yeah, that's good.
Wow, yeah. So, I mean, Marcus, Granny Smith, Rainbow Rush, Orange Creamsicle. Do you have a flavor out of these?
I think it might be something biased within me, and I'm admitting that. I can't check this bias right now, but I think the Orange Creamsicle.
Orange Creamsicle. All righty.
I love that they got the live resin in there.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited about these. And if you want to go and sample them, if you want to do all 3, maybe do your own tasting yourself, you can obviously go and buy 1 pack of all of them, which we encourage you to. But you also can buy their flavor pack. Comes with a little bit of each. You can give them all a try, walk away and say, oh, the apple one, that's my favorite. Orange Creamsicle, that's my favorite. Or maybe Rainbow Sherbet is your favorite. Figure out which one you like best.
And as a disclaimer, I don't typically like gummies.
Yeah.
I would never buy gummies.
Fair. Well, I'm gonna.
But I'll taste test them.
I'll keep these all for me. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we're going to have an interview from our friend over at Modist, the wonderful and amazing Andy, talking about the work that he does over there, talking about some of the beverages that they've got coming out, including the Northern Lights beverage that you're going to hear about, and about some of the classes that they're doing over there. And then
so
at the end,
exciting.
it's a really great interview. And then at the end, you can hear more about that event we've got coming up at Modist on the 17th, beverage release party. So listen through all the way to the end.
We're coming out with our own Northern Lights beverage.
You're modifying the brand through Modist.
This is one of our best brewing companies in Minnesota.
Oh, they're great. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Northern Lights Podcast. I'm here by myself. I wanted to tell you about the February 19th event that we have coming up. It's a Living Soil class. It's going to be held at Modist Brewing. You can get your tickets online at the minnesotacannabiscollege.org/soil. And if you've ever learned...
It's alive!
Are you a living soil?
I'm the living soil!
Do you know...
Come and learn more about me.
Do you know Stephen Cornell?
Do I know Stephen Cornell? Stephen Cornell is who grows me.
Aha, you're grown by Stephen Cornell. If you want to be grown just like Stephen Cornell grows living soil, you can grow living soil yourself. Just be like Tanner and come to the Living Soil class on February 19th.
February 19th, Modist Brewing with Cornell Urban Agriculture. Come learn about living soil.
Hey, don't they have a brand new private event space?
They do. It's pretty cool. And we're back. We're sitting here today with the man behind the cannabis beverages and products that you can find at Modist, Andy Herzog. Andy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming out today.
Yeah.
So, sort of introduce yourself a little bit. I think a lot of people have been to Modist, tried the beverages, had the products, but maybe don't know the person who actually made them all happen. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's given me a lot of credit. Technically, my business card says Cannabis Business Development, which means that I am just the catch-all for anything remotely cannabis related that comes across anyone's desk now to coordinate that. Come from a background in sales. Have been on our off-premise beer sales team for coming up on 6 years now. Worked a lot of liquor retail before that. So kind of gearing... That's my wheelhouse as far as where to put these things and what that market is looking for.
How many years has it been since you got into the beer brewery industry?
My first liquor store job was actually at the beginning of my senior year of high school, working for my best friend's dad's spot in North Minneapolis. So from couple days after my 18th birthday to now, that's all I know how to do. So, and honestly, all of this happening was a real shot in the arm, because I think there's a lot of fatigue in the craft brewing industry, kind of fallout from COVID, and I think there's a lot of burnout on that side. So to be able to have my other passion be able to fold really nicely, not only into that industry, but where I was already working is
reinvigorating.
Yeah, no, I was kind of getting down there. I needed a long vacation or to polish up a resume, and then this kind of came along at a really, really perfect time and out of nowhere.
When did Modist jump into the THC game?
So we were pretty quick, and shouts out to Thomas Thorpe over at Granny's. Showed up, I want to say July 6th after the initial hemp bill went through, knowing that I was at Modist, and immediately went to a beverage headspace and stopped by with samples of emulsion, and got me up to speed really quickly. I think if that was the 6th, I think we rolled our first batch of 10 out August 10th, maybe, of last year. So,
and was that Rainbow Rush collab?
This was straight up for Thomas at the time was at Superior Molecular, and just developing a beverage, and the Granny's collabs that we've done since then have kind of just come out of wanting to advance each other's brands. Like I said, owe a lot to him for,
totally.
I think a lot of our success came from how quickly we jumped in on it, and him being Johnny on the spot, Tommy on the spot.
So you didn't have to deal with any of the cease and desist of 2021 that some of the breweries had. You came in after things were sort of cemented, hey, this is...
Yeah, this was fully, we have not had any legal issues. So yeah, there were other players. We had kind of done a non-brewing collab with Stigma on some of their CBD products. Was the closest we had edged into. They were dry hopping some of their oils with the same blend we use for DreamYard.
Did you ever try that DreamYard CBD tincture?
No, I never got a chance to try that one.
That was my first experience at Modist.
It was
pre-pandemic.
for sure. 2019 maybe.
Yeah. Like
that.
Jacob Fry was at Modist, and it was like the product launch. Like I think it was right after MJ BizCon 2019. So
Okay.
just over 4 years ago,
Yeah.
Modist was infusing the hops with the CBD through a Stigma product.
It's a really fun project and cool guys to work with. And yeah, that was kind of first foray into that, but then hadn't really pushed past that in terms of beverage production because of the gray area around co-producing alongside beer. And
I mean, that was like a $65 product, so it's not like
yeah, it
Modist
wasn't
was going to be in the business of
right.
selling CBD oils. I
Right.
think. Yeah.
We had a minor liquor store present, but even that, because at the time too, that was a super sketchy gray area with, you only have to hear one or two horror stories about somebody getting shut down or fined before you just say,
Right.
stay away from it. So the last year and a half been a really interesting time through, obviously all of the changes in enforcement and, letter of the law, who's interpreting it how. It's a long road. I don't know, thinking about it being a year and a half or whatever is the longest year and a half, like as far as something going totally sideways on a weekly basis.
So take us back a little bit, because I think some people are curious about what it's like to be at a brewery that's very alcohol focused and then transition over to starting to produce cannabis products. I mean, what was it like internally at the company? Was there pushback, or was it pretty accepted as this is sort of the next chapter of what we need to be digging into?
There was a little bit of skepticism, I think, from a few folks, both in production and maybe a third of ownership was initially like, are you positive that this is okay? And there was so little actual, without all of the legislation is so dense, all of the legalese is so complicated that, here's a 300-page document. I've highlighted a few sections, but here's this line in this paragraph, but like we should really go all in and place this $40,000 order for emulsion. And,
My friend Tommy said it's cool.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This guy said it's all right. I've known him since 8th grade. We should be Scoochie. But just the initial returns even on it. And I think having the established name behind it gave us an edge to get in. And so seeing what it did, right, the skeptics were quickly converted. And I mean, we've always been, I'm proud to work there because we've been a pretty progressively minded, active, vocal. I mean, the name itself, we are here to modify. So that's kind of whenever anybody pushes back too hard on something just because it's weird and new, we go, that's the point, man. And usually can move forward consensus. And for what it's added to the business and afforded us a ton of opportunities that go beyond revenue, that are more collaborative. I mean, we've got stuff coming up for our new event space that we're super excited about. And so,
but take us through on the back end of things. Like, how much separation does there need to be, whether it's legally or process wise, internally? What could you share about that everyday people wouldn't know?
Yeah, I mean, they run pretty side by side. The laws, we were able to work with a few people to make sure that final language really gave us a lot of leeway and ability to run them side by side. Our processes already were super clean. Another thing that we pride ourselves on is having really high standards when it comes to cleaning process, CIP, in between batches. So really just treating it like another brew with a much more, it's a science rather than an art. Brewing, there's a little bit more of a free form, throw a lot of ingredients in, a bunch of chemical reactions. This is literally just, in some ways is a lot easier, in some ways is much more difficult depending on your approach to brewing. Being super, super precise when it comes to dosing and cleaning processes. There's been some logistical challenges for sure. I mean, the biggest thing is we can turn a batch of melt in 3 days or less, compared to a minimum 2 weeks on a batch of beer. So slotting in these little openings or whatever, like it's about maximizing our potential there and working with the space that we have.
Are they all considered seltzer?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to categorize them both for process and final product. I'd compare it to like a Spindrift a lot of the time. It's more than a LaCroix, but not as sweet or as a White Claw or what. We use all natural fruit purees, so that they've got you're adding a little bit of pectin. It gives it a little bit more mouthfeel than a straight up carbonated water, but it's definitely not a soda, so we'll go with seltzer.
For sure.
Yeah. So do you want to take us through, I mean, we've been sort of talking about the beverages. We've got a bunch in front of us. Do you want to take us through what that current lineup is that you have here at Modist?
We started out right out the gate with the pineapple raspberry tint. That was our first 5 milligram. We had a couple 3 milligram flavors out the gate too, just because it was so new. We've kind of seen that market dwindle as people's tolerances go up. So we're at 5 and 10. Tint is our single serve brand. Pineapple Raz is the first flavor combo out, and super popular with the on-prem crowd. Do a lot of bars and restaurants with this guy.
This is the pineapple
raspberry.
And I think that'd be a fun topic to dig into it with Andy here, as far as like, okay, so we know that seltzers and THC beverages are sold at restaurants, but take us through like how you were personally responsible for getting more of these beverages into restaurants, and like take us through some of those same probably style conversations that you had to have with a restaurant owner. Or
there was a couple really early adopters that the whole thing kind of comes down to what is your attitude towards cannabis law before any of this happened. And so especially on-prem, there's a huge range of people that were right on board and like, come and get me if I, like when it was still gray area and it was still just like, who's going to be the first one out there? There was all the way up to folks that need a lot of reassurance and they need to know it's going to be okay. So there was a lot of going and tagging along with our on-premise manager, Lance, to, whenever he's got a spot where he feels like this is going to go really well, but they need to see something. I'm not a legal expert. I guess I'm just more reassured. I don't know if you can bring somebody that's not your salesperson who's got a management title. I guess
Absolutely.
He's the cannabis business development. I'm like, we're actively going through legislation and in some of these working groups and saying, well, this is where it's at right now and it's looking really good. And so far, I mean, the feedback though has been great. And it has turned into a pretty big chunk. We got into First Avenue and all their related properties with Tint has been massive. I mean, so much of it is just exposure too. We'll definitely, I think, see more maybe business shift as some of these. It was surprising to get First Avenue because it's a fairly large corporate entity with multiple properties.
And let's just take a minute to appreciate that, because I think some people forget, and it's become sort of just like the norm here. But you can buy and consume legal cannabis products at restaurants, at bars, at First Avenue. Like that's amazing.
The Amsterdam of the U.S. It's really cool to see folks from out of state, but even just out state, where maybe again because of personal politics, beliefs, concerns. Cabin country doesn't have it yet. It's mostly in the metro. And so even people just coming down from up north or coming over from Wisconsin, like see our menu board and go, I can have this here. Like, absolutely. And I think even Modist is fairly unique so far in the level to which we go side by side, and haven't heard any horror stories from accounts. We by no means have had any issue. People self-regulate so much better with cannabis. And that's a big part of the pitch for anybody serving on premise that is worried about it, is somebody who has had too much to drink is going to come back up to your bar and demand more to drink, and who knows how it's going to go when you tell them no. Somebody who has overserved themselves cannabis is going to go sit at the end of the bar and look at their phone and take deep breaths and not bother anybody.
Yeah,
So,
there was someone asking me the other day, like, how are we going to regulate this on-site consumption under micro licenses and adult use? And while I definitely think there may be some challenges, maybe some figuring it out, I mean, people can consume cannabis on-site today. Like, that's not a problem of the future. It's something that like we're actively working through and figuring out and really not having a huge problem with today.
Yeah, and that goes for, you know, like I said, we're kind of the guinea pig maybe for most permissive. A lot of other tap rooms will have a system of like, oh, you get your hand stamped once you've crossed the line into cannabis, you can't order another beer there, et cetera. Or they have to be on separate tabs at least, or what have you. We haven't enforced any of that, so it really is Wild West. We've had large events with lots of people, dance events, whatever, highly active stuff, and not seeing any kind of, you know, abnormality shift. There's always some, when alcohol's involved, there's always some variance, but we haven't seen it get worse, and if anything has gotten a lot better since we've given people that alternative.
Yeah, we've seen it at our events too, where we haven't seen an issue. We've seen that there hasn't been an issue, and I think over a year ago, Jason Dayton hosted the Trail Magic Tap Room at Booch Bev, the former Able Seed House. And what stood out to me, I went the opening night and invited a group to come, and what stood out to me is that the noise level didn't get louder as the number of drinks continued.
Yeah, that's a fun observation. Like we have a couple recurring events. We've got like a trivia night. We've got it's been a while, but especially when we first rolled them out, we were still doing like a monthly Magic the Gathering tournament that actually like drew a pretty big crowd. And yeah, the same thing is like our bar staff is like, I love working those. Like we sell a ton of melt and everybody's super chill. Like there's never that guy or whatever. And then whenever those coincide with like Twins or Vikings games, and then you've got that crowd coming in out of the stadium, and like that was the funniest. It was like a Sunday afternoon Magic the Gathering tournament. We had a post Vikings crowd come in on that, where everybody's quietly sitting there enjoying their melts, and then just like horde of drunk middle-aged Vikings fans come in like,
purple dinosaurs.
There's nowhere to sit. Get your cards out of my way. But that's kind of the beauty of that environment too, and having the ability to be a hub for a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, welcome to Minnesota.
I wonder if Andy knows how many miles of lakes and rivers there are in Minnesota.
Oh no. Miles of lake, is that square mileage?
Is it just rivers?
So it's all of the rivers added up throughout the state of Minnesota, how many miles there are.
We ask every one of our guests this question.
No.
Yeah, this is just a reoccurring Northern Lights.
And how wide is the range? Because it could be really ridiculous.
Tell
either
me
way.
in the
I'm
number
like,
of 10,000 of miles.
I'm going to go, man, over 10,000 seems like a lot.
So do you think it's like 10,000, 20,000?
Cricks, we counting
30.
cricks. We're gonna
So it's number of miles of like river, like river shore in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go 30,000 ballpark.
See what you want to say.
Seems insane.
It's closer to 80 to 90,000.
No,
Yeah.
well, is it both banks of it? Does that count?
No, it's just how we've got a lot of rivers in Minnesota.
Linear river, yeah, I guess.
That's our favorite trivia question.
creeks
We
and
asked that
cricks,
at our
yeah.
last trivia event, and
That's
people were so pissed.
Yeah, that's
I was so off.
that's
Yeah.
around the world, isn't it? That's wrong. I don't know.
I don't know. We should look that up. We'll look that up.
More trivia coming next year.
We're gonna cut this whole segment.
Yeah. Trim it.
All right, so let's try through the beverages.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
you poured out some of this pineapple raspberry wine.
Yeah. Kind of flagship early adoption. And like I said, it's that not full soda. It tastes like real fruit because it is real fruit. Doesn't have that hairspray fake extract effect to it. You got the natural tartness of the raspberry balancing out the nice, thick, rich sweetness of the pineapple, and everything is kept to a pretty diluted level without being short on flavor. We've dialed that in a little bit. We have punched these up slightly based on feedback, but still super. We want you to be able to have more than one, especially when we're rocking a 16-ounce can on a low-dose beverage. It's not going to be
You need
60
flavor.
grams of sugar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you don't need sugar. Yeah, it's
Right.
that fine balance.
We're not adding anything. It's natural sweetness. It's really it's almost like using fruits as sugars.
That's cool. Well, it's super delicious. I mean, you can definitely get those flavor profiles from it. Like I could have drank in that having no label on it, and I'd be like, wow, this is raspberry and pineapple, like
Right.
100%.
It's real deal. And honestly, sometimes, especially on the beer side, I don't know if that's that type of consumer, but it's been cool. I don't know if it's a more cannabis focused or because these are pure expressions of the fruit than you would use in a sour. We've had a lot more feedback like that versus in beers. People tend to go, that doesn't taste like mango. You know, you've never had a real mango. You've had mango White Claw or like Jolly Ranchers or whatever. Like, this is a mango. They're like, oh, what's that, like piney cat pissy? And I'm like, that's what a mango tastes like. Like, that's a real mango, man. So, and that's, well, if you want to talk mango, our other 5 mig, which this was formerly a 3 milligram flavor. When we killed that brand, we liked the flavor, so we just knocked it up to a 5.
Cool.
Mango passion. Again, little goes a long way when it comes to acid. On this one in particular, passion fruit is so powerful that it kind of works better, I think, for that more diluted approach to making a seltzer versus soda.
Very cool. And I love watching sort of that evolution in the industry as we went from, 2.5, 3 milligrams really being something that I think consumers were seeking out and buying to today, where there are definitely still people that are on that low dose side. I mean, we saw that with products coming out that are like 1 milligram servings each, but sort of that change in people's tolerances are adapting to our legal products.
For sure.
It begs the question, though. Do you think there's a time where you could possibly end up just having 10 milligram beverages, or would you shake the magic 8 ball and say, hey, do you think there's still enough? Are there enough sales to warrant a 5 milligram beverage?
We've asked ourselves this recently. I think, in my mind, what's keeping us with 5s is that on-premise market. And I think as long as we continue to see our customers invest in having these things on the menu, and we still have a couple restaurant groups coming to us looking for, not contract brewing, but a consistent custom beverage, and they want 5s because they've got a little bit more control over serving.
That makes sense.
And just from a capitalistic standpoint, more sales. Like,
for
I'd
sure.
rather sell you 2 beverages to get 10 meg than 1.
Absolutely. Well, and as I've talked about previously on this show, like I was very much of the consumer who said like anything below 10 milligrams, not really worth my time. And then was engaged to my fiance, sort of learned more about her cannabis consumption. 10 milligrams, that'd be too high for her to buy out in public. And so finding that middle ground, I can totally understand that.
For sure. And that's been a huge part of getting these off the ground and normalizing them in this market. I got a lot right off the bat when we were just doing 3s and 5s in particular, and having a bunch of my customers that have known me, bought beer from me for half a decade already, going, well, do they work? Do they get you high? I go, well, not me. Like, and it's on it, but I think it's still a great alternative. It's a social beverage. That's what I'd sell it more as for the folks that, like myself, daily smokers that, fat dabs. And then go like, well, 5 milligram beverage. But it's more about kind of making a different, more conscious choice, kind of to separate yourself from alcohol if that's something that's important to you. I know that's just working in that industry. That's a huge thing that a lot of fellow sales folks, brewers, whatever, have said, like, it's really nice having them around because it's like you get so used to the muscle memory of having a beverage in your hand all the time, social gatherings, parties, whatever.
And for it to make it on a menu, from what I've heard in the non-alcoholic space, they need to be able to sell 2 of them. It's not worth putting on a menu if they can only sell 1, whether that's THC or non-alcoholic, straight up.
Yeah. It should be a repeat. We're trying to create a familiar brand that feels at home in a setting alongside alcohol instead of alcohol, while also we make a lot of alcohol. So it's I guess when you're talking about culture, like shifting those gears, I think it has made maybe some of our staff and like folks on production and development team like more mindful of the fact like what the other half of the job entails, and kind of I would say bouncing those ideas both philosophically behind what are we doing here? What do we, what do we make? What are we about, quote unquote? I think there was a little bit maybe early on, like, we're a brewery, we make beer, we make alcohol. And you go, well, are you really going to bat for alcohol right now? Like,
For sure.
If that's the difference, I mean, we make intoxicating beverages, right? If you're going to bat for alcohol in lieu of cannabis, even if you're not a huge user, just go like, well, I don't know, man. Do you feel good about that?
Yeah. Well, and
they can coexist for sure, but let's not knock one for the other, I guess.
And I think what's been so cool that Modist has really set themselves apart with is you've not just been coming out with, hey, we've got a couple cannabis products, give them a try, sort of go from there. But you've been collaborating with some really big names in the industry and creating just some knockout products. I think of, you mentioned Tommy from Granny's earlier, but Dr. Dabs is another one, like that maple sugar one.
Yeah.
So good.
It's been cool. And again, I attribute so much of the success that Modist has had really just to the community I was already a part of before any of this. Like I said, I've known Tommy since 8th, 9th grade, probably 15-ish years. And Clement, I've known through friends for several, I don't know, another 7 to maybe almost 10.
How long have you known Jesse Ventura?
That's all thanks to you.
That was
actually
a great
face to face
conversation that you had with him.
Like that's been super cool and fun meeting with his team. That one's kind of in limbo, but yeah, just the amount of contacts and networking. Zach over at On Point, in talks with him, another guy I've known since high school. So much revolves around Hopkins High School.
For real.
Like,
I think
every
people don't
time,
notice like how
yeah.
many cannabis products today and brands are connected to like this one graduating years of Hopkins High School.
Always has, always will.
Yeah.
It's there's some legacy there. It's great networking. And just some of the connections that have been made and maintained that whole time all the way up to this kind of feels like kids that were, cutting out at lunch to run to Arby's and play Swan or whatever. Like, we're having a branding meeting now about what our joint collaborative product's going to look like in the legal space is wild to think about, but really, really cool and special. Aaron Morrison, again, another, obviously over Granny's. It's just been a really cool opportunity, and like I said, really rewarding, and came at a time when I think I personally really needed some rewarding work to do and to reconnect with some people.
That's cool to hear from your side, because I definitely shop Modist more now. Like, I thought Modist was cool, knew of it, but then I think the THC and the chill aspect, like bringing my friend in 2022, like a year ago, being like, yeah, we can just belly up to the bar. We can order a pineapple raspberry and no one's going to bother us. And it's so approachable. It's so easy. And it's right down the street from Target Field. So I really think that's the last barrier. If we can get THC into professional sports, which I don't think we will, but if we can, then it is everywhere.
We're working on my pie in the sky for 2024 is to crack into a couple of the private golf courses, to get a few on board, because I think that alone right there, huge subset, and it's been a lot about getting cannabis into the hands of people that will be perfect for, but that haven't for whatever reason. And I think on the beverage side in particular, we've seen so much of so many of the rave reviews coming from a much older crowd than we would have guessed when we set out. It's a great alternative for people that are not going to smoke, or that just the entire low dose market has been great entry point for the uninitiated. And I feel like golf to me makes the most sense. Like I've been getting back into it the last like 2-3 summers, and this is all I put in my bag. I'm like, it's so much nicer. I'm like, why would you want to drink and golf? Like, it's already so hard. Why make it easier on yourself, man?
Let's take a quick break.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're back. So, Steve, you poured out some of this mango passion fruit, and I want to talk about this a little bit because I drank some of it around the break, and this is delicious. Tell us a little bit more about what went into developing this product and sort of the flavor profile behind this.
You know, passion fruit is something that we've used a lot in beers in the past because it packs such a punch. A little goes a long way. You've got that huge acid lift, but that is really uniquely tropical. And then, again, so if that's bringing the acid, the mango brings the sugar the same way that pineapple raz, acid, sugar, balance, and using both of them in a restrained enough way that it's not cloying your face off. That's mango passion. That's something that's kind of the basis for a ton of, we put out 50 to 60 beers a year. So we've done a lot of flavor combos, and a lot of them, the basis was mango passion. So early days, I mean, it was kind of just you go with what you know and see what sticks, and really, really good response on this. And again, punched it up a little bit because early feedback was, it's really good. I just want more.
Yeah, it's a little diluted in the beginning, I think, but it seems to me that what's allowing Modist to be successful is the fact that you guys are sticking with what you know, not trying to go too far out of your lane as it pertains to beer, but then kind of copy pasting as it pertains to THC.
It's a wide lane that, like, again, like with Modist being all about modification and trying weird stuff. I mean, we've made a chili cheese beer for Hormel. We were early in on the milkshake IPA craze that I'm personally very glad is over, but we killed it while it was happening. You know, we're doing we've done key lime pie beers. We've done every combination of tropical fruit you can imagine. We're getting into some really cool mixed fermentation, wild stuff. So it's a wide lane. We've got a lot of colors to paint with.
Where would you like to go? Like, in your eyes, where haven't you gone yet?
So the limitations of our equipment as it stands mean we've got to stay carbonated. There's not a ton of like coffee products that I'm seeing out there, or even coffee substitute. Like, I'm really interested in doing, we've played around to get deep into the nerdy technology stuff. Our mash filter really sets us apart on the brewing side. So we've got the ability to brew with any grain in any proportion. It's basically just a giant French press for flour. So we have done quite a few beers with oat milk as part of the base. I would love to do something. We were kicking it around with grannies at one point, trying to come up with like a chocolate milk type situation.
Okay.
We'll have to get fitted for a nitro dropper before we can make something that isn't weird and gross, but it's still super fun too. Just like, let's make oat milk, throw a bunch of cocoa powder in it, and then use like a soda stream to carbonate it and see how disgusting that carbonic acid makes it. And the answer is pretty gross. Too gross to produce. But we learned stuff, and so I think just playing around, would really like to, again, once we break free of needing to carbonate stuff to maintain can pressure, then we're full tilt boogie. We're talking about cool chai stuff, like a traditional, like a clone of a traditional like bong, like a milk and honey type.
Yeah, for sure.
Super botanical, but non-dairy milk based product.
Cool.
But really sort of tying into the history of cannabis generally. That's really cool.
That's kind of the angle on being able to do stuff like that. Our only limitation in my mind right now is carbonation. So once we get to that point where we're able to upgrade our canning line and branch out a little bit more, and that's a ton of R&D to do once that's in-house, but always looking ahead. Should
we talk about some non-carbonated news?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your private event space that's opening up?
Yeah. We really didn't add to the building, but reallocated space in a crazy way. In the back, we got new offices and a 110 capacity, multi-level terraced event space that went live for booking in like early November. The really, really cool project. Shook up a lot. That was the other challenge, like keeping up with demand on a bunch of this stuff while there's dust flying and we lose 15-20% of our production space. But it's open, it's beautiful. Got a couple really cool events planned with you guys and others on the cannabis side back there, and it's just been really cool to bring folks back there and show that to them.
Yeah, February 17th, February 19th, February 29th.
Yeah.
Should we break some news?
Sure. Yeah, let's absolutely do it, because we've got a big number of events coming up in February, and really some exciting ones, getting some education out and also just celebrating cannabis generally.
Yeah.
Which one should we talk about first?
I mean, I think you two need to share with the audience what you've been up to.
All right, I would love to. So that first event that we're talking about on the 17th is a pretty groundbreaking event for us at the Cannabis College. It's an exciting time to be able to figure out how we can collaborate with other people in the cannabis industry for education, but also for creating some really awesome products.
You're expanding on the Northern Lights concept or the Northern Lights brand, which I know you push back. You say it's an educational tool, but this time around, I think you're growing the brand.
Oh yeah. So Andy, we met a couple months back, actually at the launch of the event space. I was able to come out. Yeah. Granny's brought me out, sort of showed me a little bit, and we started talking about, some of the cool possibilities of the cannabis industry here in Minnesota, some of the things that we can be adding into beverages. And one of the ones that we both kept coming back to was not just putting the THC, not just putting the cannabinoids themselves in it, but really looking at that full profile and adding in more of that terpene side.
Yeah, and that's a bold new frontier for us too, to be able to really double down on this is a cannabis product. And for me, it's a little bit of validation again from early days of especially on the mango passion, having customers go, I can kind of taste like weed. No, it doesn't. I'll give you something that tastes like weed. This is for you guys. Really looking forward to
how complicated is that just to add terpenes?
And again, we're gonna start rolling on some test batch stuff here probably next week and playing around. But I mean, Tanner, you'd really plunked it in our laps with doing a lot of the legwork on giving us at least a jumping off point, because I mean, I know just the expense of those extracts is like, to be able to just like play around with stuff you're going to throw away. No, much appreciated on the R&D there, because you did the hard part for us.
Well, it's just been so cool being able to figure out how can we, like you said, take that flavor of cannabis that people have been saying they taste and say, no, but actually we are going to include that and really center it as something that's dominant. And, we picked the name Northern Lights for the podcast to really help illuminate the cannabis industry here in Minnesota. Yeah. But I mean, the reason we picked it is because it's one of those classic cannabis strains, that cannabis cultivars that people have been growing here in the States for decades. And we're excited to really bring that flavor out with the beverage that we're working with you on. So thanks for allowing us to really bring cannabis forward and tell people this is what
this is right.
Tastes like.
This is what you're tasting is emulsifiers that don't agree with you. This is what we taste like.
So a little over a month, like 5 weeks from when this podcast comes out, February 17th, that's the product launch date, and that's going to be at Modist Brewing in the regular tap room from 12 to 4.
Yeah, so we don't want to talk too much about the specific flavors yet, but we will tease, Northern Lights, people can expect something that is going to be a familiar flavor to you, for sure.
And help sell it out. Come on down to Modist Brewing in February. Help support the Minnesota Cannabis College.
I have it at a bunch of events. We got it scheduled for a 20-barrel batch that we'll get about 200 cases out of. So we'll see how long that lasts between cranking it out at these events and classes.
Hell
Excited.
yeah. Hell yeah. And after this interview, you're going to have another interview with Stefan Cornell, and he's going to be leading our February 19th class.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a great class because we really try to focus a lot on not just the how-to of growing, but really focusing on educating people on that science side of stuff. And if you are interested at all in growing cannabis, let's be real, the soil that you're using is an important part of that. Yeah. We'll be digging deep into the science behind it and how to really get it to the top tier of growing cannabis.
And it's not just super soil, it's living soil.
Yeah.
A little different this time around.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. And we'll be in that event space, so people will be able to come on out and see it.
Come check it out. Great presentation area, perfect sight lines, super comfortable. Got your own bar back there that will obviously have the beverage out along with the full lineup. We'll have beers on tap. Whatever your speed is for learning, we'll have it ready for you.
Super cool, Andy. We appreciate you having us and being able to do not just one, not just two, but 3 events.
And I hope that it can be a recurring thing. I mean, that's kind of what we're all about when I'm trying to infuse into this part of our business, is focusing on the community aspect and just opportunities to make connections and grow some friendships, because that's what makes cannabis cool.
Yeah.
Again, if you need back to Hopkins class of 2010, if you need any better indication that it brings folks together and keeps them there, I want to lean into that for sure.
Definitely. And I think like the consistency, it's like no longer are we at a point where, oh, my dealer's out, like I guess I can't pick up today. Like it's so accessible now, and like for Modist to continue to want to collaborate and bring new ideas up and through, it's great. I think it's the best of both worlds when we can put cannabis on a brewing line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Really infusing cannabis not just into the beverages, but into sort of the mission of the organization. That's
Absolutely.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so one thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap up today, we've tried the tint beverages, which we really enjoy, but we've got a couple other beverages, and one that you walked in today and I had not seen before.
Yeah, nobody really has.
Do you want to take us through some of the other beverages and products that you guys have?
Speed run some 10 migs here. We've got my personal favorite from the melt lineup is 10 milligram. We consider multi-serve. Maybe even slightly more flavor forward than the tint line. A little more complex too. Ginger lemon lime, my personal favorite. Super refreshing. Can like absolutely delete these. Lawn mowing beverage for sure. They disappear quickly at my house. But again, ginger's light. We do add a tiny bit of cane sugar here just to balance out that bite. But all natural lemon and lime. It's a crusher and kind of lags behind in sales, but the people that love it are pretty religious about it.
I had this one the last time I visited with you, and it was like I rarely make it through like a full beverage.
Yeah,
but when you do and you drink a 10 milligram, like you probably are gonna feel something unless you're really into it and it takes you 2 beverages. But I think that 10 milligram is kind of the perfect sessionable dose for the headier consumer.
For sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I usually want 2 or 3. It's a matter of, we're looking at like shrinking down into some more 12-ounce format stuff too. We've got our canning line set up to flip more easily between 16s and 12s.
That'd be cool to see.
It's just, and then it becomes a concentration issue. So it's, again, science over art, but we'll inject some art where we can.
Well, I love this. I've had other lemon lime type beverages before. People who watch the show, they probably saw us try Anthony's, the cultivated CBD one. But what I love about this is that addition of ginger. That's not something that I see in really any other product. It's a really great addition to the flavor.
It's enough snap, dry. It's part of what we do, and everything is like we want to invite another sip, whatever that does. And it's usually something to dry out, something sweet, or vice versa. And keep it sessionable. You can either make a really huge impact and be like, oh, it's a nice taster size. You can do these 4-ounce pours. You go to the events and like, oh, everybody likes a little teeny taster cup of it, but can you sit there and drink not just 16, but maybe 32 ounces of it? And there's something that the science of the ginger is like that snappy drying effect that kind of leaves you not thirsty, but a little bit thirsty.
I love
Yeah, clinging for more.
Right. And then blood orange raspberry vanilla. That is probably, it is our number one SKU.
Yeah, this is my go-to anytime I stop in after like a Twins game or really anytime. It's a good one.
And again, it's like I said before, we use fruit as sugar, use other things as sugar rather than sugar. And one thing that we've learned a lot and seen a lot on the beer side is that vanilla adds so much perceived sweetness without actually adding any sugar. And complex, like a lot of people don't think to combine dessert flavors with fruit in that capacity. I don't know, fruit and vanilla.
Yeah. I love this one. This is, I mean, not a new profile for me, not a new flavor, but so good. Every time I have it, I really love this one.
Reminds me
nice.
of it's red Jello with Cool Whip. That's what I tell people.
Oh, every time now I'm going to think of that. Yeah.
Like citrus and vanilla. I go, hang on.
Yeah,
Like,
that's where my mind went too. Fruit and vanilla. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a raspberry creamsicle or yeah,
Absolutely.
but Minnesotans Jello salad.
I love the smell of the ginger,
Yeah,
the ginger lime.
yeah. Super aromatic, and I mean, we want it to be a full sensory experience. We don't want to cut corners. We want things to be interesting and something that folks want to come back to.
Yeah, because otherwise, consumers have plenty of choices now in this market. Like, you have to stick out a little bit, right?
The redundancy. I mean, and hats off to everybody for coming in and innovating and trying to spread things out. But part of the challenge now with coming up with new stuff is, well, Simpsons did it. You can go, what about Trail Magic did it.
That's going to be our new thing in this industry. Trail Magic did it.
So this is a limited edition.
Yeah, so this is a one and donesy deal, although always open to bringing anything back that people respond well to.
Look at the color on
I
this.
know. I was just about to say, talk
That-
about a good beverage for a video media.
The Calamansi, right? It's almost like edging into mellow yellow territory here. Calamansi is really intense
So that's
color and flavor.
a thing, calamansi.
Calamansi's a South Asian citrus, kind of like a tangerine yuzu hybrid. Got a little bit more of that kind of super concentrated, high stinky, like
An educational podcast.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, this to me is like I just like broke open a cutie clementine, and I'm like,
Wow.
you get that
gonna
spray
taste it.
of. But again, it's the same like dilution and like fruit concentration as the other melts. So it's not. What do we clock in at here? 20 calories a can. No added sugar. It's just fruit. It's really
Wow. Yeah, that comment about the clement, like so spot on. That it feels like a summer day, busting that open, having like a little tangerine
that
bit.
spray of oil.
wish I could bring this to school.
Yeah. Well, what's great is if you come to the cannabis college,
Put it in your kids'
our
lunch.
classes, you can have this at school.
Absolutely. There you go.
Yeah, save a few cases for us, Andy.
Yeah.
Bag lunch. Oh, absolutely.
Wow, this is a good one. This is great.
I'm a fan. We're playing around too. It's supposed to be a dual release, but R&D, man, it takes as long as it takes. Looking at doing Citra hop grapefruit coming fairly shortly. So
Cool.
that's the first time we'll have dry hopped an NA product. So this thing is pushing us into. There's a lot of things that we're doing. We go, oh, this is the first time. Could have on the beer side, but we go, oh, this is pushing us into a first.
And you're creating more space for other people. You're creating space for more people to come to a brewery.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, it's been cool. Like I said, yeah, it's the demographic would maybe surprise you for like the new. Although at this point, I think it's kind of open secret that everybody's parents really dig these.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's I think it's increased the amount of time that people spend with us and their willingness and want to come back.
Well, you can't take the calories out of wine, but you can take the alcohol out of beer.
There you go. Exactly. We've got an audience, and we're keeping it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be seeing me at a trivia night sipping one of these. This is great. I
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah, it's We've got a bunch of live comedy coming up too. Back in that event space, we've got
plug some events for us.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We're trying to keep it full because January, February is the slow season for beer for sure. So also having this to lean back on for dry January is massive. So we've always got drag events going on back there. We've got standing relationships with Queer Arts Collective. We just had Backyard Boombox in this past weekend. Was a black. Is that right? Weekend before
The holidays kind of.
the time is a flat circle. But we've got a bunch of. I mean, our class is coming up. There's quite a few like private corporate things back there, but we are always looking to book whatever. So DJ nights. We've had a few album release thing. It's a pretty decent hip hop and spoken word space. If that's something anybody needs. Yeah, it's going to be a cool summer. And we also are working on closing on a new offsite warehouse that's going to offer so much open space for live events. Like, again, everything kind of comes back to wanting to bring people in and get some community events. I don't know, keep people a central part of the business. So that's right around the corner over by the farmers market off Lindale. I think by next summer we're going to be having some large like festival size parking lot shows, and opens it wide open too. Plenty of cannabis events, plenty of
Let's go.
consumption based cannabis events. 2024. Keep an eye peeled for next summer.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, so if people want to follow along, maybe hear about some of these events, where would you send them to learn more about Modist?
Our Instagram is definitely the most active way to keep super up to date on what we're doing. Just at Modist Brewing on Instagram. We're on Facebook. I don't think we ever put anything on TikTok. And our website is always pretty good with the calendar, product finder there. If you're struggling to find us in stores, you shouldn't be though. Pretty everywhere.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming out to Dabbler Depot today. We really appreciate you sharing more about your story and your background. And honestly, thanks for the spread here. We're sitting pretty at 11 a.m.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Kicking it off. Thank you so much for having me, and really looking forward to February and beyond, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
Awesome.
Get your tickets today, everyone.
Bundle. It's time to bundle for February. We've got 2 free tickets with every new bundle coming out February and March and April with Boveda. We're doing a new bundle, and you can have 2 tickets to the boot camp for the bundle.
Hey, Steve, you can just tell people that they can buy the bundle. They'll get 2 tickets to the boot camp. You can go to mncannabiscollege.org/highly-educated and just buy your bundle.
Why didn't you just say so?
Go buy your bundle today. And we're back. Guys, I'm so excited. We're throwing a party. Marcus, do you like parties? Marcus likes parties, and you like parties too.
Let me ask Marcus. Marcus, do you like launch parties?
Ooh.
I love launch parties.
There we go. We go.
How about product launch parties?
I mean, especially Northern Lights.
In the Northern Lights, with the Northern Lights, as the Northern Lights.
Absolutely. You've all listened to Northern Lights. Maybe you've watched Northern Lights, but have you ever
tasted Northern Lights?
Northern Lights? Well,
Only
now,
in the flower form.
Facts.
Well, now is your opportunity to taste it a little bit in that beverage form. We're super excited. You just heard that interview with Andy, so likely you already know some of these details, but I just want to cover them again because I think it's so cool. We're working with them to release a beverage that not only features cannabis in the form of THC, but also those cannabis-infused terpenes. It's not just Northern Lights, but it's Northern Lights.
Beverage.
You've tasted the cultivar before. Maybe you've had it in smoke. Maybe you've had it in dabs. Maybe you've bought it a vape pen in another state that's Northern Lights. Well, you now get to buy a beverage that is Northern Lights, not only just in name, but in terpene profile here in Minnesota.
February 17th.
Oh, yeah.
I have a feeling this is supposed to be a limited run, but I think this
Let's sell it
may
out.
be one of the best.
Let's sell it out.
Yeah.
You can buy it at Dabbler Depot when it comes out.
Yeah. No better way to get a second run made than to just buy it all.
Right.
So on that 17th, 12 to 4 p.m., people will be able to come out for that launch release party, but stick around,
There's
buy a couple
DJs.
cans.
Yeah. 2 o'clock, we'll have some music going.
Yeah.
And this is like a newly renovated event space, right?
Yeah.
This is in the tap room on Saturday. So we'll be with the people. Everybody will actually be able to enjoy Northern Lights. It's a beverage release party, but it's really our opportunity to pop up at Modist and promote the sale of the beverage. So it's a Saturday afternoon, a great time to drink some beer.
Yeah. We'll have shirts, we'll have stickers, we'll have books, but also we'll have that Northern Lights beverage.
Hey, I'm gonna buy as much as I can.
Yeah, come buy a case.
Yeah. Let's talk about what people can expect from that beverage. So obviously, Northern Lights, people might have a picture in their mind of sort of what that looks like. But let's talk about in the beverage form. So this awesome beverage we've been working on for a while is going to have a raspberry base to it. So it's going to have that delicious fruit flavor coming out. It's going to be mixed with that Northern Lights terpenes, which people probably know, but it's a little bit more of that, like, the spiciness. We've got that myrcene in it, which gives it that sweetiness. But we've also got a lot of other
Caryophyllene.
caryophyllene.
I was just talking about
Spell it.
caryophyllene. It's the 2 L's that really get you. The beta caryophyllene is another. That's the tincture that I was talking about the other day.
Absolutely. We think this is a pretty cool product. We think it has some pretty great flavor to it. We're excited to get it out to people and come and support it. People don't know this, but a little bit of every proceeds are donated to the Northern Lights podcast, but also to the Minnesota Cannabis College. So help us.
If you support our nonprofit, then help us by buying the Northern Lights beverage.
Yes, we're modifying the brand at Modist Brewing.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. So just once again, February 17th, 12 to 4 p.m. You can go to our website, find a link where you can go and register for that. But also just come on out. We're excited to have people out there.
Hope to see you there.
Yeah. Oh, well, guys, that was a long episode, but I think a good one. We talked about some pretty cool news. Got to hear from our friend Andy. We got to talk about a brand new party, and you love parties, so it's going to be a good time.
I'm
Rocket party.
not the life of the party, but I'll help get it started.
Plus, we'll be back next week with Doug's Nugs. Tanner and Marcus interviewed Brian and Bobby. I was not there, but I'm excited to listen to the interview.
Yeah.
Find out which one is Doug. We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we are. But in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever else you want to go.
Subscribe and like our videos. We appreciate it.
You can find us at Modist on the 17th.
And with Stephen Cornell on February 19th.
Yeah,
At the
and
Wilderness.
with Doug's Nugs on the 29th, all at Modist. So
All our events, in February are going to be at the private event space in Modist. And it's going to be great. We've got room for over 100 people. I'm going to be honest. Be honest at Modist. Come see us.
All our events sell out, so show up.
yeah, we're looking forward to it. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening today. We'll be back in your feeds in just a week.
Thank you. Subscribe, like, hit notifications, comment, share.
Oh, yeah.
All the algorithm.
Northern Lights is a Minnesota Cannabis College production. This episode was produced by me, Tanner Barris, and by my co-hosts, Steve Eigenman and Marcus Harkis. Special thank you to Andy over at Modist for coming in, telling his story, and sharing some of his expertise. We're really looking forward to collaborating with them on a beverage. Today's episode was presented by North Star Law Group, your trusted partner in Minnesota's burgeoning legal cannabis industry. The information provided in this podcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice, but is instead for general information purposes only. Information shared may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. No listener should act solely on the basis of information provided without first seeking advice from their own legal counsel. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Please listen responsibly.